before I talk about anything else, is there anything we want to ask or mention about sitting or meditation, sitting or walking forms? Since we do it every week, and it's good to ask about it or not. I want to stress that the practice of meditation is called a practice because it's not a recreation. Recreation, you know, like, I don't know, could be recreation, playing snooker or something, badminton, well maybe that's a sport, I don't know, for me it's recreation. Yeah, things you do for fun, or you think are kind of a good thing to do sometimes. As a practice, I mean, most of the time you won't feel like it's really helping you. But you practice over and over again, and then at some point you find that, well, sitting is an acquired nature. An acquired nature. Right? So if we were just left to our own devices, we would be kind of lazy animals, doing what's easy and selfish. But the practice of meditation is to try to refine that and discover a nature that is effortful and selfless. So open and aware, perceptive and free. Free from all your ideas. And that's the no thought, no sense, no sound, no color, no taste. No thought even of what your eyes, ears, and nose, and tongue, and mouth are. As soon as you start thinking about these things, what happens? They bother you. Now think about it. When you start thinking about something in meditation, it usually starts bothering you. It's not necessarily, you don't really think about fantasies and think, oh, this is so nice. I'm going to stay here. Because as soon as you say that, then it starts becoming, well, and how do I stay here? So then there's an underlying anxiety that I won't be able to stay here, so I better hold on. As soon as you start thinking about something, no matter what it is, pleasure and pain have the same nature of kind of holding you hostage. So in meditation, we want to be free, not held hostage by our good or bad thoughts. So we practice over and over and over again. Noticing, gosh, I'm stuck here. Who's stuck? And who's doing the sticking? Who's holding me hostage here? Who's thinking these thoughts? Anyway. These are practice questions. You practice the question, you don't practice the answer. The answers you have already, you repeat them over and over again. I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I am. The me is a real convenient answer. It's easy. You've been answering that, most of your life. Knock, knock, who's there? It's I. Okay. But this practice is saying, well, look again, look closely. Where do you find that idea? So, the real freedom is the freedom from a kind of very narrow sense of self. I'm not going to say freedom from self because that is too abstract. I just want to say freedom from a kind of narrow sense of self. It's sort of defined by the thoughts that you have repeatedly. which brings me to the topic I want to talk about tonight, where so much of our suffering comes from having reality interfere with those narrow ideas. What do I mean? The Buddha spoke of what's called the 5 remembrances. The 5 remembrances. 5 things you should remember and recall as frequently as possible. They are such. I am the nature of aging. I will age. There's no preventing aging. That will happen. I'm the nature of ill health. Ill health will happen. There's no stopping ill health. Sickness. I'm going to get old. I'm going to age. I'm going to be sick. I'm the nature of death, of dying. I will die. There's no stopping that. There's no preventing that. I will die. Those are the first 3 remembrances. I and all that I know and everything that exists is the nature of change. Everything will change, and all my belongings and everything I love will be lost to me. So there's change and loss are kind of synonymous here. Because of some of these changes, and then it wasn't what it was, what it once was. So it's kind of lost. And then the 5th remembrance is my only true belongings. This is the Buddha's, way of saying it. My only true belongings are my actions. My actions are the only belongings. They're the only thing that I'll be able to take with me. So those are the 5. And that last one is basically what defines karma. Okay, karma is that the only real possession you have and the only thing that you can work on are your actions. The other things are out of your control. What are those other things? Well, we just try to remember them. We already almost forgot them. There's aging. You age. Now, I always find it kind of challenging to speak about these remembrances, especially, I look around and the people who come to the meditation group in Israel tend to be young. Except 2 of us. They're youngish. Okay, youngish. So when I talk about age and death, it's sort of just like, it's like it kind of passes over the heads a little bit. It's like, yeah, okay. It's a nice idea. It sort of slides by. I'm saying for most, right? And it's interesting because in meditation groups in, say, North America, the average age is a good 30 years older than you, right? Average. And so, the talks on aging and death and sickness always sort of, people pay kind of more attention. But you don't have to be biologically old to really appreciate that age is inevitable, and you already can kind of look at your own life and notice how at some point you started to look backwards and think, I wish I could go back there, or I wish I could change that. I wish I could, do that again. You don't have to be so old to already have that. I think it starts around 21. We start to, forget the real difficulty of being a teenager and start to think, it was great. And that's where we're not remembering age, that the nature of age is that every age has its difficulty. Every age has its dukkha, has its place where you're really unsatisfied. The nature of aging is that it's not just that because you're going to get old, it's not just being old that is dukkha. But every age has dukkha. That's the nature of age. When the Buddha is talking about age, he's not just saying that I'm going to get old, because even in his time, the average lifespan was about 40. Okay, people didn't get to be so old. The dukkha of age was every age. There's dukkha in infancy. There's dukkha in toddlerhood. I don't know how to say toddlerhood. Being a toddler, okay? Like from 1 to 4, all right? There's young childhood, has dukkha, right? Watch children. Go to a playground and sit there for an hour, okay? Just watch. I mean, kids are mean. They can be really mean. They can be loving and great and fun and everything, and so much fun. But they also are cruel. And there's a real dukkha in young childhood. They don't care what they say if it hurts the other person. In fact, they mean to hurt the other person. What? You know? How does this happen? Their parents, I'm sure they didn't teach them that. Not consciously. And you know, being an older child, being a preteen, being a teen, forget it. You know? And then being a young adult, and then you have to start thinking about, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? And you already have your parents saying to you, you know, what are you going to do in the real world? Real world? And you're a young adult. Yeah, happy? And then middle adult, middle age. Someone once described middle age as having a mild cold that you never recover from. Okay? Like, you know, you just kind of feel like not as energetic, but you never get better. And then there's old age, and then there's like extreme old age. How many happy old people do you know? Or healthy, or energetic, or really independent old people? All along, when he's talking about I'm the nature of aging, he's not just saying when you're really old. It's every nature to recognize that there's a dukkha inherent. There's an unsatisfactoriness inherent in every age. It's inescapable. It's the nature of life. It's the nature of being alive. Can we actually appreciate it? And not to think it's going to be better as when I get over this stage, it'll be better. All right? Start working, get my stuff together. You know, it'll be better. Oh, I've got to get some security, whatever. Every age has its own special dukkha. Right? And it seems familiar because, God, I thought it would be over by now. So maybe a little further down the line. Maybe marriage will do it. Maybe family will do it. Something will solve this problem. But the Buddha is saying, you know, it's not a problem. It's the nature of life. These 5 remembrances, which are coming from the Buddha's first kind of insight, his first encounter. You know all the story, and you know, I put it up on real short on the website, on the update. You know, he went with his, he was held kind of prisoner, golden cage in his palace. You know, when the Buddha was born, a sage came to his father, who was sort of the chief, and said, your son is going to be either the greatest king, the emperor, the king of the whole world, greatest king there ever was, or the greatest spiritual teacher. And of course his father, as most people would, preferred to be a ruler. You know? Also because the spiritual teachers at that time were kind of nuts. You know, ascetics who would grow their hair and nails and fast and walk around in robes and beg. You would want your child to be like that? Of course not. I'm not downplaying that. I'm saying he made the right choice for him. because the options didn't seem so great. So the only way he was going to prevent his son from, experiencing any spiritual thirst was by giving him all the luxuries and keeping him protected. So we basically locked him in the palace. Also, according to the legends, he didn't allow any sick people or old people. If you were over 30, you could not work in the palace. You had to be young and healthy to work in the palace. So that Siddhartha did not encounter or see anybody who was sick or old, which meant also probably he never got sick, because you kind of have to get it from somebody, right? So imagine growing up to the age of 29. Never seeing an old person, and never seeing a sick person, and never getting sick. What would that be like? I know you think that'd be great. But until you break out, and you have what really was a rude awakening. So, he escaped one day with his cousin Shana, who was his chariot driver. And of course, he saw, like, according to the story, what gave him his first great insights was he saw a sick person. He had no idea what it was. What is that? He asked his cousin. Sick person. He saw an old person, couldn't believe it. And then finally, he saw a corpse. Didn't even know that people died. Imagine? And the fourth sign of the four famous signs was a sage, was someone meditating, someone, a holy man, a sadhu, the side of the road. And he said, how can you be happy with all this misery in the world? And he said, I found the way to inner peace. All the riches in the world are not going to prevent me from growing old and dying and getting sick. And despite my father's efforts, I'm going to try the fourth way. And so he escaped from the palace. And of course he, taught what was called the 5 remembrances. To remember, this is an inherent part of life that we spend so much effort, so much energy trying to deny and kind of avoid, evade, get away from. Aging. Okay. I was just thinking about this morning. I was at a friend's house and I saw this special shampoo, and it was wrinkle-free shampoo. Like, how is the shampoo going to be wrinkle-free? I guess when it goes on in my face from the hair. But yeah, that's like, what else can we add to, to sell youth? Wrinkle-free shampoo. All these antioxidants, and sickness, again, most of us, hopefully, have not had a serious illness. But you've all been sick. And even, short sicknesses like getting a cold for 3 days. Everyone gets the flu shot, fine, or some of us do. Now, the crazy thing about getting sick is that about 2 days after, you completely forgot what it's like to be sick. You didn't keep it as a remembrance. Now being normal, being healthy is something to take for granted. Illness, being the nature of ill health. He's not saying it's something that will happen. The remembrance that the Buddha wrote here was, I am the nature of ill health. That's a different remembrance than I might get sick one day. That's real different, right? Understanding that remembrance, internalizing it, that is the nature of the body, is the nature of life, to get sick, to have ill health. Just as it is also the nature of life to have health. But they go together. When does it happen? We tend to think the older we get, the sicker we get. But I'm sure you know people, just in the past week, I had a student, she's about 23, and they all have to give like talks at the end of the semester. She said she didn't know what she was going to talk about until a week before. Why? Because suddenly she found herself in an ambulance. She didn't know why, and she had woken up from an epileptic attack, a grand mal they call it, like a serious attack. It lasted about 7 minutes, if you can imagine. I can't. She didn't know before that she had epilepsy. So she decided to talk about epilepsy. She said, at least now she knew what she was going to talk about. She said it was a really, it transformed her life. She lost her license. She can never drive again. She doesn't know if she'll ever be able to swim, because what if it happens in the water? Serious questions about, having children, getting pregnant. I mean, all these things, right? All the plan that she had for her life in 1 week, at the age of 23, totally changed, right? Totally changed inside out. She wasn't upset about it. She was like, now I gotta figure out how I'm gonna live differently. It's quite remarkable. I'm the nature of ill health. I'm the nature of ill health. It was always there. When we went to the Dharma hike a few weeks ago, I was in the car with somebody, another friend, also young. I'm talking about young people because you guys are young. And she's about 27. 2 years ago, she started having some fainting things and got a CT scan and discovered she had MS, which is a life-changing sort of disease, immunodisease of the nerves. You never know what's going to happen. It's always there. Some people, continue lives quite normally. Some people will then have sort of strokes that debilitate them permanently. And you never know. What kind are you going to have? I'm the nature of ill health. I have ill health. I have health and I have ill health. Both are in us. A few years ago, I read a book about death and dying and the traditions of dying. And the book, the opening paragraph was this. Just want to share it with you. The symptoms of dying. You and I, one day, will die from the same thing. We'll call it different names. Cancer, diabetes, heart failure, stroke. One organ will fail, then another, or maybe all at once. We'll become more similar to each other than people who continue living with your original diagnosis or mine. Dying has its own biology and symptoms. It's a diagnosis in itself. While the weeks and days leading up to death can vary from person to person, the hours before death are similar across the vast majority of human afflictions. We're all going to meet at that place. It's all similar. Usually people die, if it's not in a sudden accident, most of us will die from some sort of health condition, from the nature of ill health, from the nature of aging. That's just the way it is. Aging, ill health, and death are one thing. It's the life we have. It's life. It's life in itself. Those are what the remembrances are saying. It's not something separate from life. It is life. It is life. How can we open to that? How can we remember that as a practice? Not as a depressing thing, but as something that, when it happens, it becomes the way we explore what it means to be here, to be alive. Like this woman who, she now has epilepsy. Now how am I going to live with this? How am I going to live with this? Meaning, how am I going to practice with this? How am I going to be present with this? So the evening gatha that is chanted in Zen centers before the meditation says, "Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time swiftly passed by and opportunity is lost. Strive to awaken. Do not squander your life." Squander means waste it. This is a rare opportunity we have. And I don't mean while you're healthy. I mean while you're alive. You're alive. Sometimes it may be pain-free, and sometimes it may be painful. Here are the remembrances that the Buddha is offering us. They're saying, that's one reality. There will be pain, there will be pleasure. If you prefer only the pleasure over the pain, your practice is going to be very limited. How can we, with some equanimity, with some equality, with some acceptance, really explore what it means to practice with these remembrances? I am the nature of aging. I will age. I am aging. I'm aging now. What does it mean to be this age right now? I'm the nature of ill health. No? Ill health. My body is vulnerable. It is vulnerable. It gets hurt all the time. How often do I judge my being hurt, whether through a wound or through sickness, as a type of failure, right? As an obstacle. That this illness and this pain is an obstacle to me being who I really am. The Buddha's remembrance is saying, this is who you really are. This is who you really are. It doesn't mean love it. It just means this is it. This is your moment. This is your life right now. Don't forget the fourth remembrance. There's I will die, but the fourth remembrance is, I am the nature of change. I'm the nature of change. Which means we really can't judge ourselves by being healthy or by being sick. Because this healthy state right now is in a process of change. This sick state right now is in a process of change. What is the real you? It is the nature of change. There's a poem I want to read to you. It was written by a 12th century Tibetan monk. Gyaltse Niglu Tongye. Didn't pronounce that, but what can I do? Here's a Tibetan sage, a recluse, a cave dweller. And he wrote these verses on pretty much these remembrances, the Buddha's remembrances. If this illusory body, which I cling to as mine, is sick, let it be sick. This sickness enables me to exhaust the bad karma I've accumulated in the past. And the spiritual deeds I can then perform will help me purify. If I'm in good health, I'm happy because when my body and mind are well, I can enhance my spiritual practice and give real meaning to human existence by turning my body, speech, and mind to virtue. If I am poor, I'm happy because I've no wealth to protect, and I know that all feuds and anger sprout from the seeds of greed and attachment. If I'm rich, I'm happy because with my wealth I can do more positive actions. And both temporal and ultimate happiness are the result of meritorious deeds. If I die soon, that's excellent. Because, assisted by some good potential, I am confident that I shall enter the unmistaken path before any obstacle can intervene. If I live long, I am happy, because without parting from the warm, beneficial rain of spiritual instruction, I can, over a long time, fully ripen the crop of inner experiences. Therefore, whatever happens, I shall be happy. Yeah, I like this approach. It's completely impossible, but I do like it. Like these spiritual giants are here to inspire us. They're here to offer us an alternative to judging our experiences as, good or bad, but rather to say they are all our spiritual practice right now. Right? That the whole thing, whatever you experience, you can transform it into your path of awakening. And that is inspiring, and we should take it to heart. And that's, I really think, is what the Buddha is reminding us with these remembrances. That aging, sickness, death are not obstacles in your path. They are your path. They are your path. And to open to the teaching that they offer us, the teaching of non-attachment, the teaching of non-judgment, the teaching of more generosity. Because what are you going to take with you when you die? You might as well give it away now. Your time, your attention, your wealth, your deeds, your actions. Give as much as you can before you die, because when you're dead, you won't be able to. The remembrances are deep practices. They're not just what we remember, they're what we practice. They are reminding us to practice with these realities. And we should be very grateful to have these teachings with us so that we won't get lost and fearful when we find ourselves facing this truth of aging, sickness, and death. We won't be fearful. Joan Halifax, who I mentioned last week, the Zen teacher, she said that it's harder to fear what you see clearly. That's real interesting. It's harder to fear what you see clearly. So by the Buddha encouraging us to remember again and again this very nature of life, he's asking us not to fear it, to look clearly at your experience. It's going to be difficult. But if you face it, at least the fear will be less. She was talking about an experience that she had a few times where there's a holy mountain called Mount Kailash. And it's considered to be the center of the universe in Hindu and Buddhist thought. It's like a real holy mountain in eastern Tibet. And there's a long path. It's not allowed to climb. It's the only mountain in the world that has not been climbed. Its sacredness has meant it's been off limits to anyone to climb, right? So the snow has been there for millennia with no footprints on it. But there is a path that goes around it, and Tibetan pilgrims travel around this path. I don't know how many kilometers, 20, 30 kilometers, something 50 maybe. And they travel, and some of them are prostrating the whole way, like full body prostration up and down. They're wearing pads and they go around the whole thing. But in certain places, there are some charnel grounds where they bring dead bodies for the eagles. It's a very high elevation, the whole thing, for eagles and vultures to come and eat. It's called a sky burial. But before, in order to help the eagles and vultures, they cut up the bodies. Sounds gruesome, doesn't it? These are Tibetans who are doing it now out of compassion. For who? For the birds. They want to help the birds out. Birds don't have much to eat there. And these are dead bodies. And they're also helping these dead bodies offer the merit of giving their own bodies to these birds. She was told to go sit there by her teacher and just observe this. And at first her experience was total revulsion and fear and disgust and judgment. And then after a while it just settled. The judgment just cleared away. And she was facing it, right? Clearly, with clarity. She was seeing it. She was just seeing it. All the life, the death, the aging, the change. The change from person to body to meat to food to ego to nothing. It's harder to fear what you see clearly. So when you encounter aging in your life, sickness, ill health in your life, and death, and change, and your actions, those 5 remembrances, look clearly, unflinchingly, don't turn away. And you'll notice that there'll be a slight shift if you practice over and over again. And that's why we sit. We sit so that we don't run away. That's why we keep still, so that we won't run away. I'll just finish with one last encounter I had. Just today's Sunday, yesterday, I was walking on the bike path and I saw a friend who I occasionally see, and I saw him change over the past couple of years because he was diagnosed with cancer and he's been going through treatment. And you change when you go through treatment. What do you say when someone is having a treatment and chemotherapy and cancer and it seems like he's in his last stage? How are you feeling? And his answer was, it's been a good couple of days. Focused. How farther do we want to look? Past couple of days have been okay. Been pretty good. So I think we should see clearly what really matters and practice as well as you can.